Welcome, everybody, to update number 5 for the Love's EV charging network. I just want to apologize for not having an update on this project for quite a while. Honestly, there hasn't been a huge amount of movement, which we're going to get into here in just a minute, the reasons for that and what to expect going forward. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, NEVI impacts to the Love's charger rollout. As many of you may be aware, Love's has relied heavily on NEVI funding to identify sites where they're going to put in chargers, so it's going to have an outsized impact on their rollout, at least in the short term. So just as a recap, here's kind of what's happened in the last few months since I've done an update. Back on February 6th, the FHWA issued a memo rescinding existing guidance associated with NEVI. Basically, that means the states can't get any future plans updated or approved by the federal government. It also suspended new obligations under the NEVI program, so essentially funds that had not been dispersed to the states for any of their outstanding award programs or RFPs, that is not going to be funneled to the states until new program guidance is established. The memo said that there would be a public comment period coming up in spring 2025 to modify the current guidance and reissue it to the states for implementation. As of today, I have not heard of any such public comment period, and I think the status of the program overall still remains up in the air and with a lot of uncertainty. So immediately after this, on February 10th, a couple of things happened. The Electric Drive Transportation Association, which includes GM, Toyota, EVgo, Stellantis, Walmart, a whole bunch of different partners that might be interested in the NEVI program, they urged the current administration to quickly resume the work of the program in a press statement. Similarly, NATSO and Sigma, which are trade associations for truck stop and travel centers, and a fuel marketing trade association, issued a statement that said that, quote, the NEVI program has in many states helped catalyze existing gas stations and truck stops to install fast, state-of-the-art EV charging stations. So this is obviously true of Love's. It's true of the Pilot Flying J program. At Buc-ee's, you see the Mercedes network. I don't know that one's been as heavily involved in the NEVI program, but there are obviously sites going in due to this program. Okay, now I made a mistake here on this last quote, so if you've seen the slide update, that's what happened. I started re-recording here, but I did want to say that Kim Okafor, specific to Love's, she's the general manager of Zero Emission Solutions, said that Love's remains committed to meeting customers' needs regardless of fuel type and believes a robust electric vehicle charging network is a part of that. Love's will continue to monitor related executive orders and subsequent changes in law to determine the next steps. Okay, so to me this means that Love's still wants to rely on the NEVI program where they can, and I think they're hopeful that there'll be some resolution to these existing awards amongst the various states they're operating in, and some clarity about future awards and whether they'll be available to Love's for use or not. Okay, so with all that in the background, let's talk about specific states. It's really the Wild West out there and all over the place. Several states have said that they're going to meet their current obligations, so sites that are already funded and they've had money applied to them from the federal level down to the states. Those are Arizona, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. There are a few states who have completely paused their rollout regardless of the status of obligation. Alabama, Arkansas, and Wyoming are those. I live in Alabama, so specifically to this state, I asked the group that's in charge of administering these funds, and my suspicion is that their caution is that they're going to obligate money, start dispersing this money, and there may be associated funds from future rounds that would go to these first round of stations, maybe in operations and maintenance, that they won't receive anymore. So I suspect they just don't want to be on the hook for funds that they won't have in the future if the NEVI program collapses. Maybe that's being a bit optimistic with these states, but I think probably that's what's happening here. The biggest category here is states that have just said nothing. When you go to their NEVI pages, there's really no information about the status of the program other than what had happened up to the January timeframe. So, in summary, there's a lot of uncertainty around this program, and it's causing states to give different responses. to the status of their individual programs. Okay, so enough about the status of NEVI and what's going on there. Let's talk about the changes since the last update. Again, there hasn't been a huge amount of movement, but we did have Waterloo, New York open up back in February. That one took a long time to come open from the beginning of construction, but it is now operational. It does look like there's a little bit of footing work left to go for their canopy, but it's charging cars, which is the important part. Mifflinville, Pennsylvania, and Brookville, Pennsylvania have come on here in the last month. Brookville was just this week. There was an announcement on LinkedIn about that site, which is the picture you see down at the bottom here. To my knowledge, there are no stations under construction at this point, which, again, tying back to the NEVI, the uncertainty with that program, I think, is palling a lot of things right now. We did have a few new awards. Bethoud, I think is how you say this one, Colorado, and Brighton, Colorado were announced at the end of December. And somewhat shockingly, Minnesota has announced 2 new awards in St. Charles and St. Cloud just here in the last couple of weeks, which is interesting considering the NEVI status. I guess they're going to continue with that program. I heard a few news articles mention that they were going to put some of their own state money into the program, so maybe they're planning on funding these sites through state funds if necessary. Then a couple of new store openings that don't have any chargers, but New Iberia, Louisiana, and Charleston, Missouri. The press releases for both those sites mention that there is space left for EV charging, and if they can find a partner for that it may get installed at some point. That's really kind of standard language for all new Love sites at this point. Here's just kind of a map of the national site status. You can see there's 83 awarded now, 32 open. That includes sites under NEVI and sites that were previously open at Love sites. And then the 6 planned sites, those include any identified on the original Love's map or new stores that have opened that have spaces for EV charging. You can see Pennsylvania and New York are completely open now from the original plan, and these new added sites are up in Minnesota and Colorado for the most part. Here are your tables if you're interested in this data. I'll just hang here for a second. These are sorted by time zone. The bulk of these are in the central time zone. Here you are in Mountain Time. Again, the only changes here are the new awards to Colorado. And lastly, Pacific Time Zone. No changes here since the December update. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. I will make updates to this program as needed. Again, the progress is slow, so the frequency of videos may be down a bit until there's more progress seen with installation and construction of these sites.